In the previous lesson, we covered a common use case for the Binloop Uncompressed. This includes applications like independently playing channels of video, or even playing groups of up to 8 channels of video. I can't help but get this feeling that you aren't exactly the common type. Am I right? I'll bet that whenever there's a pitch meeting and someone says, I think we should just throw a 32-inch Vizio TV on the wall with a DVD player, call it a day. You emerge from a dark corner and say, or we could strap them to a ride vehicle, hurl them 32 feet in the air, and blow their minds with an immersive experience comprised of over 70 million pixels of stunning, uncompressed content. Exactly. Now, synchronization is a glorious thing. When multiple systems are in perfect sync with each other, the results are nothing short of magical. Making it happen with perfect consistency is not for the faint of heart. No need to worry, though. We've been in the synchronization game for quite a while, and I hear we're pretty decent at it. What's the secret, you ask? Well, whenever we're interviewing an engineer, we like to kick things off by locking them in a room with nothing but a Dark Side of the Moon album and a pre-1989 VHS copy of The Wizard of Oz. If they can piece together what to even do with those things, they might get to come back for a second interview. But if by some miracle we're watching Dorothy fall off of a pig pen during the lyrics Race Towards an Early Grave, we know they're Alcorn McBride material. Let's dive into a more advanced application that really leverages the synchronization capabilities of the AV Binloop Uncompressed and the V16X show controller. For the sake of this learning exercise, let's say we've got a flying theater application that will use projection to achieve an immersive 8K 120 video experience. To provide this, you would use 4 AV Binloop Uncompressed units, each providing a 4K 120 portion of the image. To ensure pixel-accurate synchronization between these units, you would team them up with the best show controller in the industry, the Alcorn McBride V16X. The V16X offers 2 major advantages that are needed to consistently achieve perfectly synchronized playback between all 4 of these units. The first is the Genlock output that is distributed from the V16X to the Binloop units. The second is precise control that is referenced with the Genlock signal. Let's talk about why both of these are important. Video sync is a bit complicated, but all we really need to grasp is the concept of the vertical sync, which is what results in the frame clock. This clock ticks at the frame rate of your video content, whether that's 24 frames per second, 60, 120, or whatever the case might be. The precise moment of the clock tick is when the new frame is displayed. Imagine a situation where you have 4 different playback devices that have no shared reference for this clock. They all just power up and generate their own clocks internally. While they might all be configured for the same frame rate, odds are very high that the clock ticks would all be out of alignment, just like this. This means that they will all display new frames at different times, making it impossible for these players to work together to form one large coherent image. Also, these clocks might be running slightly faster or slower than the others. This would result in these playback devices slowly drifting apart over time, which only makes things even more incoherent. Genlock is a great way to solve these problems. Genlock-enabled devices work by locking to an external video clock that's shared between other devices. This means that everybody shares the same exact frame clock. This guarantees that the frame clock ticks at the same time and operates at the same exact rate. Now let's talk about the importance of precise control when triggering synchronized playback. The challenge is that it takes time for the playback devices to receive and process any incoming commands. Not a lot by any means, but enough that if we're not careful about when those commands are issued, we could have inconsistent results. Since the architecture of the V16X show controller is precisely synchronized with the Genlock output, it ensures that these commands are transmitted immediately after a tick of the frame clock. This gives all receiving players an entire frame to receive, process, and react consistently to the incoming commands. Although I'm sure you enjoyed my amazing explanation, The coolest part is that you really don't need to think about these concepts very much. Why? Because I can sense that you're a smart cookie and will be using the V16X for all your future projects, right? Now that we got the technical details out of the way, let's see how we would write a show control script to synchronize these 4 players. Okay, so I've created a script here for the V16X. One of the first places to start would be to just add the devices. So you can see here that I've added my 4 bin loops, and I've chosen to name them TL, top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. Okay, so there are 4 unique devices. Next, we can specify the media clips that are stored on those devices. Now we're dealing with an 8K video presentation, so each one of these bin loops is going to have a quadrant of that. So you can see here that in my top left bin loop, I've specified a clip that's associated as being the top left, clip 1, 4 minutes 33 seconds long. Okay, repeat this process for all 4 players. Pretty easy. And then it comes time to do the actual timeline, where I'm going to trigger all 4 of my bin loops to play in sync with each other. So I've just created a simple timed sequence here. And what I can do, grab my top left track and drag it over. Okay, then my top right. Bottom left. And bottom right. Okay. Just to show one thing here, I'm going to go ahead and edit one of these clips. Now when I drag a track over from the media file section on the left, it automatically selects the source as all. What's cool is this application, that's actually what we need to do. In order to play 4K 120, we need to play all 8 channels in each uncompressed bin loop. So this actually works out really nicely, and I don't need to edit any more data within these events. I also want to make sure my sync configuration is properly set up. We're going to be using Genlock here, so that's super important. Now the Genlock is going to be coming from the V16X. So whatever I enter here is what's going to be output on the Genlock output. So notice I've set it to 59.94. My video sync out, that's the Genlock output, is going to be outputting at 29.97 clock. Now that's not exactly what we're going for, we talked about in the presentation, but the cool thing is the AV Binloop Uncompressed can take that clock in and derive a higher frame rate clock from it. So that's all going to work great. Okay, all I have to do now is get connected and launch my timeline. And all 4 units are going to start in perfect sync every time. Now, I don't always build attractions with uncompressed video, but when I do, I use the AV Binloop Uncompressed. Stay synchronized, my friends.